Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, my good friend Ole Dammegard returns to the show. Ole is one of the preeminent researchers studying and exposing the dark business of assassination and false flags. Ole's work is completely self-funded, so if you could take a moment after the show and visit his website, lightonconspiracies.com, and consider donating or sponsoring his work, Ole would be greatly appreciative. For tonight's discussion, Ole shares his ongoing investigation and analysis into the recent Brussels attack and how the controllers are using a terror template to engineer false flag events to intentionally inflict fear into the public consciousness in order to further advance their one world agenda. And so without further ado, here's Ole Dammegard. Ole, these events, Brussels, before that, Paris, before that, San Bernardino, they certainly appear to be following a pattern. And I know that you have studied this, and you have said before in other shows that we've had that they follow a template. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about that template and how you got into analyzing the patterns that are being used to pull off these false flags.
I have spent so many years trying to expose the template that are being used so that us ordinary people would become aware of how it's carried out, and so that we can, as soon as we see that the ingredients are there, that we can just expose it, boom, and stop getting into fear mode, because that is what they want. What we're looking at, in my humble opinion, is once again so-called false flag operations. And we've been in your program, we've been going through the different ingredients in a false flag. So with the hope that your listeners have been listening before, or maybe you can guide them to the earlier recording, then maybe we can go through the bullet list and see, are these ingredients there again here in Brussels? Because it's very important not to jump into conclusions before you actually look at the evidence. Would that be okay that we do it like that? First, I'd just give you a quick overview of the official story, and then we'll break it down and see, is the official story true, or might there be another version?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here we are. It was a totally normal day on the 22nd of March in Brussels, which is by many called the heart of Europe. So if you want to stage an act or an act of terror, where would be better than right in the heart of Europe? Because if it is a false flag, then what they want is to secretly create a problem to get the reaction, a horrendous problem in the form of bombs or mass shootings or virus scares or financial devastation. These are the normal ingredients to get the reaction from us, so that we will go, oh my God, I need protection, I need protection. And they want it emotional, so that we don't use the brain, we just go into reaction without thinking. And then in that fear mode, they can then serve us the solution. Because we, the normal person, will not understand that it's actually them who have created this terror. So why is this important? It's very important because either we live in a world filled with crazy Muslim terrorists that since the 90s have suddenly come from nowhere and suddenly turned their hate towards the Western civilization, mostly because some people have made cartoons out of Muhammad or something like that, and that have then given the idea that we need to blow up and kill everyone that are not of the Islamic faith. Either that is, we're here with just people waking up in Arab countries, having breakfast, and then spending the rest of the day making plans on how to blow the rest of us up. Or we're looking at something totally different. And here we're talking about state-sponsored terrorism, where the enemy is from within, where these terror acts that are killing us, the normal people, the more the better, are there to get us into fear mode so that we will accept their agenda. And the agenda they are suggesting every single time is more and more control. Militarized police, military appearance and presence in the streets, martial law very close, surveillance cameras, scanners, body scanners, giving up your freedom, your liberty, liberties, your civil rights, your human rights, and also funding totally unjust wars that are all based on this terror. And a terror that, if I'm correct, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews, I've devoted some 30 years of my life exposing these things. If I am right, then these wars are totally unjust, and I'm not the only one. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of researchers saying the exact same thing. So, if we go to Brussels, when there is a false flag operation, you have to look for certain details. It is just like making a pie, like we explained in the other program. There are certain ingredients that are very, very important. They're essential to make this pie, a terror pie. Because the thing is, you can only change the different variations in the theme is very limited, because you need a boogeyman, you need fear, you need us to become totally freaking out, and then the solution will every time be the same. So you got the boogeyman, the terror threat, the fear, and the same solution every time. So you can't, there's not that many variations. And it's just like with a pie, you can change the shape of it, you can change the color, maybe the taste of it, but it's still a pie. Same here. So the official story goes that at the airport in the morning around 8 o'clock, there was a bomb that exploded near American Airlines check-in desk at the airport. Then very shortly after, some people say within seconds afterwards, there was a second explosion. This explosion is said to have killed, the numbers keep changing all the time, so very hard to see who actually got killed and so on. And then this was followed about an hour later, actually 11 minutes past 9:11, in the metro in central Brussels, killing more people, blowing up a train and all of this mayhem. And so we look at this because very, very quickly afterwards, we were told that the terrorists were people that were connected to the latest terror attack in Paris, and that it was the same people, suicide bombers. First, the bombs were in suitcases, then it turned out that they were suicide bombers. And they were able to very quickly identify them, find the apartment where they had been, where they had very conveniently left the bags with bombs in and an ISIS flag, because that is what you carry around when you're an ISIS terrorist, if you have forgotten your passport, because the magic passports are otherwise a standard ingredient. Okay, so after this thing, we're back to mayhem. People are freaking out, people are so afraid, and so on, going totally into fear mode, and here we come. Borders are being closed, that have like military checkpoints, and where people have to carry their passport and ID and all of these things, just like during a war in many areas. You know, they have open borders from between France and border. Absolutely not. They are there officially, but I think we have about 220, if I've been informed correctly, of like checkpoints around the border. So we're in sort of like a military zone in Europe based on this terror event and the other terror events as well. When you look at these false flags, you have to see them. If what I'm saying is correct, then they're a part of a much bigger agenda where so many things are working together towards total chaos. They want chaos and create order out of chaos. They want to wreck the old system. They want to wreck the national borders, the national identity. They want to wreck everything. And out of these total chaotic ruins, that is where they're going to build what is called the New World Order. This is what I humbly suggest. I'm not the only one. But I would like to just show some things that might point in that direction. A false flag operation is an old naval term from the old days when people were traveling around the world in ships, also warships attacking others. And in those days, if you were one of the big nations like Holland or England or France or Spain and so on, you had the power to just invade and crush a small country or island or whatever. But if you did that, you could have problems with neighboring countries, trade agreements, and so on. So it was much easier to look like the good guy instead of the bad guy. So what they did in the old days was they put the enemy flag on one of their own ships, then let that ship attack themselves, and then suddenly they were under attack, they were defending themselves, and that then justified them going in total rape, plunder, death, and destruction, and also becoming the hero because they were the one who were being attacked. And in many of these operations, it is, I tell you, it is almost like seeing Mike Tyson walking into a daycare center and beating up children, saying that, well, they started. These people, these powers that invade because they're being attacked are so massive compared to the enemy, so-called enemies. So there's absolutely no balance whatsoever. And the logic of like a 3-year-old child starting to try and beat up Mike Tyson, there is not a lot of logic in that. And it's the same in these situations where we got like a small little country or defenseless little country, and then it just get totally hammered and devastated and destroyed by extremely powerful nations like the US. I mean, the US is almost always there together with NATO, just absolutely destroying these countries. And when I've studied a lot of history in my life, and I must say I'm not sure if I've ever found a war that was not somehow based on a false flag operations. It is standard procedure.
Yeah.
So to understand the methods that are being used against us, I think is essential. And there's so few of them because it's all based on that a small group of people, very small compared to the masses, have at one point come to a stage where they thought, we are so much better than the rest of you, useless eaters, as they call us. We want to control you. We want you as slaves to do everything we say and do and demand of you. How can we get you to do it? And the answer is through fear. It is only through fear that they can control, that the few can control the many. So what the few of during thousands of years have had to create is an outer enemy, a boogeyman outside, not near them, with no connections directly to them, that can create a threat so that the population would get into a fear mode, and then we, the few that have elected ourselves as better than you, can then come with a solution. And the solution every single time is that it benefits them on an incredible level, never the normal person. The normal person have to pay,
Right.
pay, and pay. Okay, so 2015 and now 2016 have been a long line of terror acts, especially in Europe. You have mass shootings in the US where they're trying to, through these so-called mass shootings, they're trying to make the weapons being the problem. The mass shooting is the problem to get the reaction from us. Oh my God, something needs to be done. And then the solution is give up your weapons. That is the whole scenario. And the reason why these mass shootings are happening in the States is because that is where the weapons are. The US is more or less the only nation where the population is armed to the teeth. So they have a major problem with that. But here in Europe, there's a different situation. They just want us to totally freak out and bend over and accept their agenda to destroy everything. Here in Europe, bombs have been the trend the last few years.
Is there a lot of resistance, Ole, in Europe to the New World Order and the globalist agenda?
I have no idea, Mike.
Okay, I was just wondering.
I live in like a soap bubble. I do not know. I know the world around me and my family and the clothes. I know that I get thousands of emails and beautiful response from all over the world. Many of them women who are very much behind this type of exposure, totally non-violent but fearless exposure of these very male forces that are doing this to the world. So I know there is, when I compare to like 30 years ago when I started waking up, I was so alone the way I felt, it's so now when we're talking millions and millions and millions of people that are awake and also spreading it on a daily basis, the situation is totally different.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I think also this is why they're speeding it up. The people behind these operations are speeding it up because they are getting fearful. Because if we, the normal person, find out what actually is going on, they're done. It's bye-bye to them, They fear a lynch party when people start seeing what actually has been carried out right in front of us. The reason I talk about these things is not to spread fear or anger or hatred or violence. On the contrary, so important how we deal with this, and it needs to be in a non-violent way. Otherwise, we will just create more and more of this mayhem.
Yeah. I mean, they have to
So,
be concerned because these things are becoming more brazen.
yeah,
Right. I mean, the lies now, they don't even really try to camouflage things. They're essentially just, they put it out there. And we're seeing that in the United States now. I don't want to derail you here, but more and more people in the United States are waking up because of the fraud that's going on with the primaries leading into the presidential election later on this year. They're starting to see now that the system is so corrupt, and they're seeing this because the corrupt system is being outwardly corrupt. They're actually saying now that your vote in primaries and caucuses doesn't mean squat. We determine who's on the ballot. And when they say we, they mean the establishment. So I didn't want to digress there, but that's why I'd asked the question, because here in this country, people are waking up to varying degrees, but I'm also seeing that they're waking up because the controllers are being more upfront with regard to their corruption. They're just balls to the wall now and just trying to put the pedal to the metal and go.
the thing is that they have so much. The whole system with these people is built on crime, deception, manipulation,
Right?
violence. Uh, and now, how can you keep it covered up when you at the same time need to speed up because the masses are awakening? Not an easy task for them, and this is why they're freaking out and becoming more and more sloppy with many of these operations.
Right.
Many of them are like, come on, how badly is it pulled off? It's just incredible,
Yes. Yep.
But what can you do? And they used to have these operations like once every 3 years or something like that. Then we had the big ones like 9/11, Boston bombing, Sandy Hook, and so on. And then it started becoming like more and more because they also needed people they didn't want to give us time enough to really look into these things. Because if you really start looking into only one of them, it will blow your mind if
Yeah.
you believe the official story. So they need to divert our attention, divide and conquer, to divert the attention and then make the enemy be among us so that we do not look at them. Here it is with where they came to a point where it was almost like a scare of the week. This is what I've been told from inside sources in the CIA and so on, that they had to speed it up. And it's sort of like, so it's from being hit by one punch here, then a few months later, boom here. Now it's like to keep us out of focus, to keep us in total fear, believing that the whole world is messed up. Where I tell you, if you turn off the black box in front of you and look out through the window, very few of us are living in a war zone. But that is what they're trying to persuade and tell us that we're living in a world filled with pedophiles and violence and mass shootings and terror acts and all of. But when you turn the black box off, look outside. At least I believe that most of your listeners will look outside and will be pretty calm and pretty beautiful. The sun is out there, nice neighbors, and so on. So it's very important, just like we've been talking about before, also to be aware of that box is like a sewage opening and a sewage tube that you are letting right into your house, your home, in front of your children. Because the power structure behind these operations have invaded all areas in life where they can affect us. And believe you me that the TV, films, and music and news are the ones that can really get to our subconscious. So they focused a lot of effort to take over these areas in life. I know myself and many, many other researchers that are seriously devoting our lives to this. We don't watch TV. We try and stay away from it because we know the power behind it. And it can be interesting sometimes to watch it just to see what it is they're trying to pump out. But my God, and also when you've been away from it for a while, it's like so violent.
Yes.
The impact, because I believe this is the biggest and most sophisticated propaganda machine the world has ever seen. That is through this black box in front of it. It's even called smart TV.
Yeah.
You know, everything that is called smart, it's smart because of them, for their purposes. So I watch very much, I watch out for these things.
Yeah, their presentation's very slick, and you can see how people who pay attention to it or watch it can get sucked into that big black hole very easily.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we're up against extreme professionals. They get the best of the best.
That's right.
They've got the funds. They even print the money themselves. They have not a problem with these things. It is just that for a normal person, for instance, for myself, I use what I call Farmer Brown logic. 1 + 1 = 2. Doesn't matter who tries to force it down my throat that is 34. It will still be 34. No, 2, even though they can make like 3D animations and graphic details how it is 34. I know that it is 2, and there's a reason why they try to lie to me. And through the lies, you can backtrack and it will take you to the solution. Why are they doing it and what really happened? So let's go to Brussels. I was waiting for an attack. I've been able to publicly go out and predict several of these things. I've even been able to be part of stopping at least the Copenhagen shooting that happened in February 2015. I went out publicly on several different international radio stations saying it's going to happen here at that time around this train station in central Copenhagen. It did not happen that day. And I believe maybe because of this exposure, but it happened 1 month to the day on the exact same time a day right by the train station. Why was I able to predict that? Not because I'm super smart or have a crystal ball. It is because once you start seeing how they operate, you can predict it as well. And this is my main aim, is for many people to start predicting what's going to happen and then expose it before it actually happens so that we can become one step ahead instead of one step behind all the time. Anyway, so in these false flag operations, if it is a false flag operation, a drill is always present. The drill is there so that they can close off streets in the area, so that they can get their vehicles in positions, explosives in positions, smoke bombs, extras, get the patsy lured in position so you can take photos of him and stuff like that in position, all these things without us interfering, because this drill is a security drill for your protection. So we will just stand in the background applauding and being very grateful for them arranging these things. But these drills are very, very important to become aware of, because these drills very often have a tendency to go live. The drill can be one day and the terror event the very next day, or sometimes even the very same day. Sometimes even the drill goes live halfway through. That was what happened in the 7/7 bombings in London and so on. Like when they blew up the government building in Norway, the drill ended 22 minutes before the actual event happened, and so on. So the drill is extremely important. The Boston bombing as well, the drill was there, boom, 5 minutes later, boom, the real thing happened. So in Brussels, was there a drill? And the answer is yes. There was a drill at the Antwerpen Sports Palais the very evening before. It's a big sports stadium, which is 26 minutes by train from Brussels, from the airport. So You had multiple extras, many extras that were there in buses and so on. They did the whole thing with the stadium being attacked, and there were crisis actors lying there with cut off legs and blood everywhere, and all of these things. You had the fire brigade, you had ambulances, police, all of these things were there being trained. And the exercise ended 10 o'clock in the evening. The bomb, half an hour in train from that spot, the first bomb exploded 8 o'clock in the morning. So very close to the location and time-wise. Then you look at one other main ingredient that is always there is that this CCTV is turned off. For some reason, this super duper high tech, fantastic equipment that we spent billions of taxpayers installing suddenly doesn't work. Standard procedure is the same every single time. And there is one company, an Israeli company called ICTS, that is always the ones responsible for this CCTV system. There's another one in Sweden that is also Israeli owned. They are there all the time. And I don't know about you, Mike, but if I made a mess out of things, I would get fired. People would not hire me again. But this company, every time they fail, they just get installed. Their products get installed more and more and more places.
Yeah, they get rewarded.
So they get rewarded.
Yeah.
So here we are. Was there CCTV footage? Yes. That's good, because for once you saw the explosions. That was amazing, both in the metro and at the airport. It was there with the time tag, all of that was there, fantastic. Only one slight problem. The footage was from an explosion in Moscow and in another Russian city from 2011. When that was exposed, the authorities said, oh my God, we're so sorry, we didn't mean to, there was a mistake. How can you make a mistake like that? How is that possible? It is only because geeks like myself have exposed it. Otherwise, they would never ever have told you. But now, so there was no CCTV, and then suddenly, yes, there was, and then it was totally from the wrong. It wasn't even from the same year, the same country, the same nothing. No.
Yeah.
So the other thing we have also in one of these false flags is that the patsy is pointed out right away. Before you look into evidence or anything like that, you have a blurred image of a Muslim. That is standard again and again. And they have strange names like Abdul Al-Akbar Saluh Kalach or something like that. Here we have again, there are 3 bombers, so-called suicide bombers, blurred photo with names that even I can't remember. It's a something like that. How do we know that they were suicide bombers? Were there any, can you see them on the CCTV moving? No, still photos. There's always only still photos. No time tag, no nothing from the camera, but it's them. How do we know? Because 2 of them had black gloves on their left hand. Okay. I'm not sure about that, but black glove, suicide bomber, I don't know where the logic is, but they say that maybe they had some remote control device in that black glove. I would say, okay, I don't know, but it's not the first thing I would think of. Do you know when Anders Breivik is said to have blown up the government building in Norway, that was absolutely not only him. It was a massive, big operation carried out by the same forces as we're looking at here,
yep.
If I'm correct. He was taken to hospital. They say the reason they took him there was to x-ray him to see if he had a device inside of him that could turn on the explosives. I mean, what kind of mad person would swallow the trigger mechanism for a bomb? I mean, you burp and suddenly the bomb goes off. I mean, but this is the logic we're looking at here.
That's cartoon stuff. It really is. It's cartoon world stuff, Ole.
It doesn't work in cartoons. It's just too bad. It's just, you would never buy it.
Yeah,
but
right.
Then again. Okay, another thing is that the cell phone system is blocked. This is also radio communication. The normal phone system is sometimes blocked as well. Suddenly it just stops working. This is standard procedure because the powers behind these operations are very, very aware of that they need to keep the narrative and they need to be able to control the outlet of news coming from the site so that they can get the official story out there without any interference. So was there such a thing happening in Brussels? And the answer is yes. Suddenly the cell phones just went dead. Even the police, the normal police, could not use their communication system. They have a system called Astrid, and it was down for hours. And then they say that the police had to use WhatsApp, the app, and Facebook to communicate with each other during this whole event. This is the same when it happened in Norway, when it happened in the 9/11 as well. You had the cell phone system totally went down. They say it was because the towers were on the
Right.
big skyscraper, but there are other towers, But no, went down, blocked it. When Kennedy was killed, the whole national phone system went dead for 1 solid hour. 1 solid hour. And it said, yeah, everybody was phoning each other. Have you heard the news? JFK is dead. I would suggest we're seeing another one. We're seeing the other version. They shut it down to be able to control the whole parameter. Also, when Kennedy was killed, they had airborne troops in the area, so that if there were riots in the area, if anything like that, the troops would already be there, could go down anywhere. So the troops and the police will be very, very close to these events because they are part of it. And here, when people said, they talk about the explosions, they said the explosion happened and boom, they saw militaries running into the building.
Yeah.
Where did they come from?
Right.
This is yet another sign that this is what's happening. Okay, so you look at the explosion itself, and the thing is, when you have a suicide bomber, for one thing is that when you blow yourself up, it's not to be recommended. It will totally mess you up. There's a lot of body fluids, bone structure, organs, all of this will be spread all over the place. Awful. The whole place will look horrendous. You can see that from actual sites where people have blown themselves up. It is horrendous. Here, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not a trace of these suicide bombers. And it's said that one blew himself up at the airport. They can't really explain the second explosion. And then one of the three went to the metro and blew himself up. And the third one, a guy with a hat on, a cap, he freaked out and left. He just left because he got scared. Okay, so when an explosion takes place, you have the epicenter of the explosion. And according to normal physics, the power is generated in all directions with the same force. If you have something that stands in between, that will take the impact. But otherwise, anything around it will have this impact from it. So you look at here, and you will see that the whole ceiling is on the floor. It looks like a war zone, but it's only tiles from the ceiling. You look at the walls that should have been totally covered with like it said that these bombs were made with nails and metal pieces and shrapnel and stuff like that. The whole walls and all of these things should have been totally devastated. Not a spot. They're beautiful white walls. You've got like TV screens that shows the flights. You've got banners in the background. Nothing is damaged. So that also makes a bit of a question mark. So the only thing you see is smoke. There's a lot of smoke, but smoke bombs are easy to detonate. Also, you can have like bombs that sounds a lot, but there's no real explosion that takes place. So also there's damages to the windows, especially around the entrance to this. But when you look at it, you got the whole entrance that is covered with glass, big windows. But look at the windows that have been crushed on all these windows. I don't know, it does not look as glass to me at all. It looks like thick plastic or something, like very strange. And it's like you got like the 3 major windows totally blown up and some small ones above it And then all the rest of them is totally intact. There's not a damage, there's not a tiny little crack, nothing, but the other ones are totally blown out.
Yeah.
So go figure, how do you do that? How is that possible? It is not. Then you see, yeah, but oh my God, the impact from the bomb was so bad. And there's a photo, one of the first photos that was released was of a glass door that was just lying down. You look at the door, there's not a scratch on it. Somebody has very carefully undone it and put it down, not to damage it, and taken a photo saying, oh my God, look at this devastation. Then you look at the photos. There are some still photos that was taken from inside the airport. And all of these photos are taken by the same person, a woman that is said to have been only a few yards from where the bomb exploded. I mean, that is very close. When you stand close to a bomb, not a healthy place to be. Not a wound, she's totally okay. And her name is Ketevan Kardava. She works for a company called Georgian Public Broadcaster. Okay? And when you look at these operations that are being carried out now, they're very much connected with NATO, with the so-called Gladio, with CIA, Mossad, MI6, these intelligence services that are always there doing these things, but also the European Union. When you look at the key people that are involved, you have to be aware of, are there any connections with any of these organizations, with NATO, with the European Union, with the European Commission, these organizations that we believe are there for our protection, but these organizations are being used and created by the same forces that are behind this. So this photographer, Ketevan Kardava, like I say, she works for the Russian or the Georgian public broadcaster, which is funded by the European Union. She was trained by the BBC. The BBC is one of these networks that are always on location, spreading things that turns out to be false afterwards. I can only remind you of the woman that was standing in front of Building 7, speaking about Building 7 having been blown up. Some 20 minutes before it actually went down.
Yeah,
you can see the building in the background.
The BBC reporter.
The BBC is always there. It was in Paris. It was the BBC reporter was talking about the blood that was put on the pavement where this policeman is said to have been shot, which he was not. They were in Denmark making an audio recording of the speech at the Copenhagen Free Speech Cafe where the shooting is said to have been. That recording has turned out to be absolutely fake and manipulated. They were there at the Pakistan mass shooting in Peshawar 2014, where one of the victims, according to BBC broadcaster, where you could see in the background, one of the photos that kept being repeated was of Noah Postner, 6 years old, one of the victims from Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
I mean, how bizarre can it get? But it is, BBC is one of these channels that are there all the time. So also when you look at her profile photo, this photographer, she has the whole thing with holding one hand in front of one of her eyes, which is a very Freemasonic symbol that you will see being repeated multiple places in music and film industry and all of these things as a secret language to each other and so on. Here she is holding one eye. And also in her normal day-to-day work, the people she interviews are people like the Secretary General of NATO, some of the top leaders in the European Union and other people. And here she has one of the eyewitnesses that are being interviewed so that spreading this whole thing. There's another man, he was working for, he was down in the metro when the train is said to have exploded. This man, who was one of the eyewitnesses from the explosion in the metro, he is one of the people who tells, oh, it was awful, there was smoke everywhere, dead bodies and body parts, horrific. His name is Ian McCafferty, and his work, when you track him down, he says himself that he's a storyteller. He's a social media strategist for the European Commission. He says in his own presentation, I help the European Commission tell stories online. But this entails more than just once upon a time. I am tasked with helping it to find its voice. And he says that one parts of his job is communication strategy development, whatever that means, content creation and platform pirating, whatever that means, community management, including troll patrol, whatever that means, monitoring and data analysis, training, use facilitation techniques and presentations, usually using pictures. Generally speaking, I'm working in change management, teaching the European Commission's representation offices, DGs and commissioners' cabinets to embrace social media as a means of achieving their communication objectives. What does that mean? And here I would suggest that this could be a very good person to have part of this whole operation, how this information is being spread, how social media is controlled, all of these things. And here they interview them themselves, to get them into the action so that they're there from natural reasons.
Yeah, it sounds like he works for the Ministry of Propaganda. That's what it sounded like to me.
Totally. Okay, so we look at some of the victims. We have here, when you are blown to pieces, it is horrific to see. That is for sure. So when somebody is very seriously hurt, the normal reaction of people around them is to try and take care of that person. To how are you doing? Do you need water? Can I help you? Here we have these people lying around, blown totally to pieces. They look horrific, but nobody is caring for them. They're just walking around next to them, not really even looking down, saying, how are you doing, buddy? Nothing. It's just they're lying there. And one of them is a basketball player. I think he's American, really good looking guy, because this is also when you have these things, you need a psyop. You need to get people in the emotion. So they have the cute guy, a very tall, dark, handsome guy. There's an interview with him from the hospital bed, and he's lying there saying, it's amazing, I'm so grateful to be alive. And on the way to the train station, to the airport, I had this very deep conversation with the wife of a friend of mine, and we were talking about faith. And I think also he mentioned how fragile life is, these type of things. So we just put that in there. And then when you look at him, for one thing, people that have gone through these type of things are normally shocked. I mean, we're seeing people having the shakes, people being they can't really put sentences together. They're crying for no apparent reason. They can get hysterical. They're like, it's a horrific event they've been through. But these people that we're seeing interviewed are totally calm. They're smiling. They're having a good time, it looks like. And so this guy, when you look at him, he's very relaxed, very charming and so on. He's got 2 plastic strips, these things you get at the hospital. I've never been to a hospital where you get more than 1. He's got 1 on each wrist. And normally it says something on it. You've got your name and address. Here, as far as I've been able to see when he's doing things with his hands, there's nothing on them. So you got other people, for instance, there's this guy that was very severely hurt in the metro bombing, and he said that it was horrific, bomb smokes, dead bodies, horrible, and he was helped out into the street. This is also, you can see all of these hurt people being lined up on the pavement instead of being put in the ambulances and taken to the hospital. Come on, these people are in a bad state, get them into the ambulances. No, instead they're taken into a nearby office. This is what he says. He's sitting there, his whole face is covered with bandages. You can only see some parts of his face. He's got bruises and so on. Otherwise than that. And And he says that they were so kind at this office, they were looking, how can we help you, and so on. And he said that he had burned his hand, so they came with a bucket of cold water that he could stick his hand into. I'm sorry, buddy, you have had your whole face burnt. Your head is covered in bandages, and you're talking about that your hand was burnt. Wouldn't you even mention this thing?
Yeah.
There's another girl, a small little girl, that if you go to a children's hospital where children have been burnt, I mean, it's like going to hell. I've been to these places. The screams from these children, the pain from burns, it's horrific.
Yeah.
And here's a girl, once again, bandages everywhere, very handy so that you can't identify the victim. Because you cannot track who is this girl. You can only see the mouth and the
Right.
eyes.
It's like wearing a ski mask.
Totally. And she's sitting there smiling, a little trembling hands like this, but otherwise covered in bandages, being burnt and so on. And also when somebody has been burnt, one of the things they do is give them heavy medication and painkillers so that, you're a bit like drowsy and like that. She is sharp like a razor blade, smiling, laughing, talking. I totally doubt these victims. And then there's a Mormon, an American student, who, what are the chances, had been to 3 of these different terror events.
Yeah.
He was in Paris, he was in Boston, and now he was in Brussels. This guy was born under a dark, they call it a black star or something like that. I don't know what you say, but I mean, what are the chances of being in all 3 locations? And this guy as well, you see him interviewed, covered with bandages, so you can't see him. But then when he calls his parents, his mother asks her, so how are you doing? Well, I got burned. Where did you get burned? Well, my whole head is being burned off. No, that's not what he said. I've been burnt somewhere around the right ear,
Yeah.
he says. That is not what you're looking at. You're looking at somebody totally like a mummy. You have another one that these people that keep repeating and coming back, I always like, whoa, hang on, who are you? There's a Norwegian guy that is being interviewed on Scandinavian TV and so on. His name is Tandberg. And he was, when they blew up the government building, he was one of the absolute first that came to the site, running around filming the whole thing. The whole devastation, running around with his mobile camera. Really good for someone like me because he's really covered a lot of territory with that, and you can make a timeline perfect because he keeps it on while he's running around.
Yeah.
Super. I'm very grateful to this guy. But he is connected to military operations in Norway that, according to sources I have in Norway, are directly connected with the Gladio network. Stay behind. And he now is at the airport being interviewed. So he was right there when the bombs blew in Norway, and then he's here. What are the chances? It could be a coincidence. I'm not saying anything else, but it is something you have to put a little question mark around. Then there's another thing that is connecting things with Norway, is that at the metro station, when you look at the people that are taking care of the wounded, and here we are again. I mean, there's one guy, he looks like he's gone through like McDonald's frying party, that everything is burnt off his body. He's lying there on the pavement, stretching his arm like, please help me, help me. Does anyone care? Absolutely not. He's just lying there so that people can take photos of him. Next to him, there's a couple making out. They're standing there kissing, totally ignoring him. And he's like on the pavement, please, I'm dying. But when you look at this, why are these people not taken in their ambulances and driven straight to hospital? Why? Instead, you have the fire brigade. All of these cars are standing there already. The ambulances should have been there first, then the fire brigade normally. Here, the victims are just lying there. And then when you see the people that are actually the ones taking care of the so-called victims, there are 2 of them with a yellow vest on, and on the back of it, it says Thon, Thon, And Thon is it's a Norwegian billionaire. He's one of the richest people in Norway, as far as I know. He's a property owner, a big guy in Norway and in many other countries when it comes to properties and so on. And he was quite central in the when the government building blew up in Oslo, because he had a lot of properties around in in this neighborhood, very central in Oslo. And there was a lot of things around insurance things and so on, where empty buildings being blown up, and then it seemed they were not supposed to have been empty, but they were, and things. So this is a person that has been questioned before. And when you look at where the metro is, the entrance and exits to the metro, it's only like 100 yards to the Thon Hotel in Brussels. He's got several, I think 3 in Brussels, 2 or 3. And that's where the hotel is. But when you look at where the police corner, what do you call it, when they put up these plastic bands where
they
cordon off the whole thing, that hotel is included in the area for some reason. And I would say this is a very possible place where extras, management, PR, the public relations people that are involved in this, creating slogans and logos and all of these things that are then on standby, ready to go as soon as the bombs explode. This would be a place for them to stay, being fed, showered, all of these things. You can have coffee, all the logistics, toilets, very handy and very close. And also, when you look at the entrance into the subway station, it is right next to, it's actually side by side to an entrance down into a parking garage, which would be the perfect spot to prepare people with makeup, with looking in this horrific state. You can have all your vehicles, all your personnel, everything down there, and nobody would even notice it. And this is also standard with these operations. I'm always looking for where is it possibly logistic, very close to the event, to have these facilities, because these things takes time to carry out. You need bathrooms, you need coffee, you need makeup facilities, exactly the things I've spoken about. Also, that nobody can see what you're up to. So I would very much suggest what was going on in this parking garage. It would be very interesting if people who lives in Brussels could find out,
Yeah.
Then we have some very, very weird things going on here also, because one of the things in these operations when they're connected is that they have almost like a trailer of upcoming events, like a preview of what's going to come, connecting these things. So you will see the same main characters appearing again and again and again and again. And sometimes they have, like, very openly right in your face on the news, in programs about possible future terror attacks and stuff like that. And they go through the whole thing in great detail, and then we don't react, and boom, they pull it off. And according to what I've been informed from people on the inside, they say that the people in the elite or Illuminati or whoever is behind in the actual top, I don't know who they are in the absolute top, the way they understand and interpret the law of karma is that if you inform the victim about what's going to happen and the victim does not react, then the karma is on their shoulders, not the attacker. And I've even spoken to Chip Tatum, who's a CIA whistleblower and a former assassin, a top assassin that was working directly under George Herbert Walker Bush command, taking out a lot of people, and who was also during his career involved in false flag operations. I asked him about this, and he said he'd never heard of it, but he said that every time they got an order to take someone out, before that they had to approach them verbally, giving them a chance, as he said, to conform. And then if he did not conform, if they did not do what they were told to, then they got a green light and could just kill the person. Yeah. And Chip said he was very uncomfortable with that, because his and his team were, it was a big risk for them to approach them instead of just having a sniper taking them out or whatever, just killing the person.
Yeah.
But he said, when I suggested this thing, he said, it makes total sense. So was there anything like this before the Brussels event? And the answer is yes. Because if you remember the Bataclan Music Theater in Paris, do you remember there's a very famous photo from the inside of Bataclan where you have about 25 bodies that are spread around on the floor. There's blood around it. It's the only photo where you can actually see real victims killed, if they are real victims. But this is the photo. When you look at that photo, it is right away, there's some very strange things. The body posture of some of these bodies are, you can see that it's not real bodies because you cannot do things like that with your legs and your hips and so on. It's totally unnatural, some of these positions that these bodies are in. So I would very much like to suggest that we're looking at so-called dapper cadavers, dummies that are used in exercises for the fire brigade and film recordings and these type of things. But also around these bodies, it looks like somebody has taken like a giant brush, like 1 meter, 1 yard wide, and painted what looks like what appears to be a heart around some of these bodies. I mean, big time. And they say that came because they tried to save a victim, and they dragged him around, and the blood just made that pattern. But when you look at it, I mean, you would have to have like a 400-pound person bleeding like 20 liters, and then pulling him sidewise, in a perfect pattern around in a heart shape to make that pattern. It's absolutely not natural whatsoever. Some people suggested that it was the eye of Isis, of Horus.
Horus, yeah.
Yeah, the Egyptian one. But I thought it looked like a heart, and I thought, did they do that because Paris is the center of romance? Go to Paris in springtime and for
right.
newlyweds and so on. Is that why they use the heart? And then I saw a Finnish TV news thing about this event, and suddenly I saw the logo from the Brussels airport, and that is identical to that thing. It looks like a mix between a heart and a bird symbol, also like a 3 or a B. Very bright red, like blood red. And then next to it, it says Brussels, the heart of Europe. And that was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
They've done it again right in our face. Here it is, an upcoming event. You figure it out. We put it right in front of you. If you don't see it, boom, the karma is on you. Also, it's important to know that Brussels is not just any town or city or capital. It is also the headquarters of NATO, and as far as I know, the secret headquarters of Stay Behind is in Brussels as well. This is only a few kilometers from the airport. So why did they not attack that if this is what they wanted? Why an airport that makes no sense at all?
Right. Well, that's always the question. Why is it that they're attacking the targets that they're attacking? Why don't they go after the meat and potatoes,
Yeah.
Right.
Also, the date is normally very important, as you know.
Yeah.
It normally takes place on Veterans Day, Patriots Day, Valentine's, Halloween, you name it, like these big dates. And here we have the 22nd of March, which is the day of the Skull and Bones. But it's also the day of, I think it's called Purim, a big holiday. And also Easter as well,
right,
where there's a lot of connected to blood sacrifice and sacrifice of human lives. And one thing that I found interesting as well is, do you remember this photographer who worked for the Georgian Broadcasting Corporation? I just told you about her.
Yes, the lady.
Yeah, the lady. Here we have suddenly Georgia, which has never appeared before in a false flag connected to these groups that I've known of. But the unveiling of the Georgia Guidestones, you know these Guidestones?
Oh, yeah.
That was on March the 22nd, the exact same date, but 1980. Maybe this Georgian journalist is sort of playing the part of the guide to the outside, to showing these things. I'm not sure. I'm just pointing out things that could be connected.
Well, they're all secret societies, and they communicate through their symbolism. That's what they do. And a lot of people probably don't understand that, or if they've heard it, they reject it. But you know what, Ole? Over and over and over again, dates mean something. And they're not just by accident that they decide to do something on 3/22 or to do something on Halloween or 9/11 and so on. These dates have meaning to the occult within these secret societies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only say after 30 years, if it was one time, fine, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, but it's more or less every single time.
Yes.
And I spoke to Chip about this as well. And he said, since he was into assassinations, he said that they never were told anything like that, that they had to hit this victim at a certain date, because he said that would have been impossible anyway, because when you're targeting someone, anything can happen, and you have to wait for an opening where suddenly the bodyguards are not there, or there's suddenly an opening and then hit. So he said that could take days before they could do the actual hit. But when it comes to these things that are pre-planted and pre-prepared and with explosives on site and so on, we're talking about a totally different thing. Also where the time of when these things goes off are very, very important. And if you remember when we were talking about the false flag pie, I told you that very often the bombs goes off around 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, because that is when we're the most vulnerable and we're most open for the impact of this horrific event.
Right.
And here, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then one of the bombs went off 9/11. These things, it is just so many times. It's 9/11, 7/11, 7/7, and so on. And the number of dead people. How difficult can it be to count a line of bodies? I mean, how difficult can it be?
Yep.
But here they keep changing. It's like a painting with watercolors on floating water. You can't grip the facts. When you look at the victims, often, yes, they look very real, very alive. They look very often, they're from multiple countries. And I would say this is also done by design to affect as many countries as possible, to get the emotional impact, because somebody from England does not care about somebody from Spain in the same way as someone of their own nationality. And the same in Spain. They don't care about the Portuguese, they care about their own, and so on. So by getting victims from as many countries as possible, that is part of the game. And you will see here, you have always the main number of victims come from the country where it happens. But then after that, it's spread out in a long line of like 10, 12, 15 different countries. One. Also, when you look at these victims, you will find them on Facebook, you will find them and so on. Many of these photos are selfies or nice photos or very blurred. And so they look very authentic. But when you start tracking these people down, the paper trail will be very short normally. And this is when these agencies are involved. What they do is they create fake phantom identities of many of these people, including family members and so on. Or these people can be people that work for these agencies and just appear as a family member or a witness or something in the background, in SWAT team uniforms, in whatever. So you really have to look into these things and go and really do your research to find out, did these people even exist?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. It is so bizarre. So anyway, one guy, his name was or is Alexander Pinchovsky, I think you say the name. He's an American guy, and he and his nephew Sasha Pinchovsky, were at the check-in there when the bomb exploded. Now, many of these victims, when you look in the reports, they say that they're missing. I mean, how can you go missing in an airport just because you're killed by a bomb? It doesn't mean that you disappear.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, maybe the suicide bomber disintegrates, but otherwise than that, there will be a body. But multiple of these witnesses, in the beginning, the family says, oh, we're so worried, he is missing, she is missing, and so on. Then you check him out, like this Alexander Pinchovsky. His sweetheart in the States went out in media saying, please help me find my loved one, and so on. And they were showing photos. I have like 6 or 8 photos of this guy where the difference is in weight is like 100 pounds. He goes up and down. He got curly hair. He's with glasses. He's without glasses. He's like, I can't even say for sure that it's the same person, these different photos. And then when you check out his fiancée, she is the daughter of the former US ambassador of Copenhagen, where one of the other shootings took place. And many of the victims that are being interviewed have some kind of connection with media. And there's another one, there's an American lady who's sitting together with her husband, and they've got blankets and so on. It's very horrific. There's another eyewitness that is sitting there, and she's supposed to be shocked. She's got a blanket around her. There are lots of people with blankets that are just walking around. I don't know where these blankets came from, but lots of them are walking around. And she's sitting down being interviewed together with what seems to be her husband. She's talking about, oh, it was horrific, we saw this and that and so on. But I thought I recognized her. And so I started to tracking her down. And her name is Denise Bryant. And she's from CBS Baltimore, being one of the hosts there. So here's another one that is connected to media and the same media channels that are pumping this out.
Yeah.
And this may sound like a long shot, but when you look at how controlled media are in the States, for instance, where you've got like only 6 owners of all public media, 6 owners, and these 6 owners are also connected. So it's like, it is not by coincidence, I would say, that they can control people that they have under their wings, sort of.
Well, what I tell folks is that, and you're absolutely right, 6 companies own virtually all of the media in the United States. And all it does, all it takes is for 6 people to sit down and decide what it is that you're going to see, what you're not going to see, what you're going to know, what you're not going to know. That's it, and that's what goes out. So it's not like these big conglomerates and thousands of people have got to get together to decide what it is that's going to be communicated to you. It's 6 people.
Yeah, and not even that. And that controls the whole picture, right? Because when you go down through the power pyramid, if these 6 people say we go this way, the people under them will follow.
Exactly.
Not even questioning what they're doing. They will just say, this is the guidelines we've been given, this is the direction we take.
Right.
And then the rest just follows. And everybody thinks they're doing their job, not understanding their part in this whole thing. And there's a standard with these operations. It's totally compartmentalized. So you only know your little piece on a need-to-know chain, so that nobody can expose what's going on except the actual people in the top.
You know, Ole, to kind of put this into perspective for the audience, you know, I worked for a very large multinational corporation for many years. And so at the very top of that corporation, they would develop a strategy. And the strategy meant that is where the company is going to go. That's the direction. And the people underneath the top of that pyramid, they didn't question the strategy. The strategy was established, it was set, and then the orders from the top of the company would be to please execute it, put it into play, make it a reality. And people executed against that strategy. So that's basically how it works in a nutshell. You're not going to have a bunch of people underneath the top of that pyramid that are going to sit there and debate what comes down from the top of the pyramid. It's just not going to happen. So your example with the media, that's exactly how it works. A decision is made as to where we're going to go or what we're going to cover. And the people go get their cameras and their pads and their phones and whatever else they need to go do their job. And they go where they're told to go.
And they believe they're doing the right thing, that
Exactly. That's right.
they do the very best to deliver the very best they can,
Right.
not understanding that they're part of a machine that is heading in a totally different direction. So this is exactly what I'm saying. There's not thousands of people involved in this knowing about it.
Right.
There is a handful, key people, using like people from the Ghost Army, the Gladio network, that are carrying out these real terror events again and again and again since the 50s and onwards. They have been behind so much of this mayhem here. And it's all built on the old CIA strategy, a strategy of tension. How to inflict fear into modern society. Random violence to scare people into obedience and to bend over and accept more and more control. How can you do that? You need terror. Terror is their tool. And this is why it's so important to expose these things, because their agenda is extremely dark for the rest of us. They want absolute, total control.
Right.
And if we don't wake up and smell the coffee and do something about it, we are screwed.
Yeah.
But on that note, I am super positive, and I think we're heading towards a fantastic future. But we need to wake up and become active in seeing what's going on and also doing something instead of just clicking like on Facebook. That is not enough. You have to also do something.
Well, thank God there are people like yourself, Ole, doing this work. I'm being genuine here, because if people like yourself, especially you, are not doing this work, a lot of this stuff would not be revealed.
I know, I'm a pain in their butt.
Good for you.
Yeah, and this is my big pleasure, because not that I want to cause distress or problems to normal people, but these powers, I will do everything in my power to totally mess their timeline up, to mess it up for them. Because also, according to Chip, their timeline is very, very strict, and so many things are built into these things. So just because a bomb goes off in one place doesn't mean that is it. These things work together. And I'm telling you, the thing that happened at Charlie Hebdo, Copenhagen, the series of so-called bomb events in Turkey, absolute not real ones, many of them. The one in where was it? Tunisia. This one, the Paris one, on the November the 13th, and the different terror drills and scares and so on in the UK and Brussels, totally coordinated. And you will see the same theme again and again and again. And what we've seen this last year, there's a very, very strong impact from Israeli interest or Zionist interest, where the theme that is being repeated is that they want to evacuate the Jewish population back to Israel or to Israel, get out. And why that is, I'm not totally sure, but I think that it is to get more and more Jewish population to Israel so that they can push out Palestine once and for all and get rid of them. Because many, many times the patsies are being pointed and called Palestinians, which they're absolutely not. The patsies are, but not the guilty ones.
Right.
Very recently, when the bombs went off in Istanbul, once again, Netanyahu went out and said, we need to evacuate the Jewish population. That was exactly his words after Charlie Hebdo. That was exactly the words in Copenhagen. And in Copenhagen, you even had white buses driving around where it said evacuate on them.
Yeah.
And these white buses are historically very important in Europe, because it was exactly how many years from the Second World War? 70 years?
70 years, yeah.
Yeah, exactly on the date, more or less, when they liberated the so-called concentration camps, with white buses coming from Sweden, Denmark, Norway, going down there, helping people out from the concentration camps back to to Scandinavia, and they were looked upon like heroes. And here we have these operations on the exact dates, but 70 years later, where white buses again are driving around while the operation is ongoing, where it says evacuate, beautifully painted on the buses, evacuate. And then when the Paris things happened in November the 13th, there were white buses driving around where it said occupied on them.
Mm.
Occupied, a long line of buses. So what are we seeing? If I can take this opportunity to go into the psyop a bit more of what they're doing as well.
Sure.
Because in my humble opinion, we have what can I say, an operation, a very violent operation, where the thing is violence and the impact of fear. That is the result. But at the same time, there's also like a very soft thing that is there to push buttons in your subconscious, to trigger things in your subconscious so that you will just buy into it. This is what the big companies are using, you know, it is not for nothing that Santa Claus has red and white clothes. It is a Coca-Cola stunt. It was Coca-Cola that changed the colors to his clothes, so that every time you see Santa, your subconscious will say, I'm feeling thirsty. You know, that's the whole idea. So colors, logos, slogans, narrative, not by coincidence many times. So what are we looking at this time? In Paris, the last at November the 13th, very, very satanic undertones with, satanic rituals in videos, in the photos from the Bataclan, many, many things that were very, very satanic in a way that I've never seen before in these operations. And so here, are there any signs of these things again? And when you look at the pictures that this female photographer took, one of the most famous photos is where you can see all the devastations, where the ceiling, where the tiles have fallen down on the floor. It looks like mayhem has happened. There's no people at all in the photo I'm talking about, but the two photos, you have like a chessboard of black and white tiles on the floor that look in mayhem, but it looks like a chessboard blown up. This is also very, very important symbolic in Freemasonry, the
Right.
black and white chessboard, checkerboard thing. It's the light and the dark and the struggle between them, and so it's always there. And here you have one photo where there's a soldier in the middle with a big automatic weapon. He's the only one in that photo, standing in the middle of this chessboard that is looking like devastated. I would say maybe the theme that keeps repeating is order out of chaos. You know, destroy the old, out of the ruins of the old civilization, the new world order will be built.
Right.
Also, the second person that you see in this footage is a man, a hooded man, all dressed in black with very white face and white hands, who's standing. It looks like he's with his mobile. But when you look at that figure standing on the chessboard, I mean, the thing that hit me was that this looks exactly like this very, very famous Ingmar Bergman film, The Seventh Sail, I think it's called in English, where death comes to the main character in the film, and he has to play chess with the devil, or not the devil, but death,
yeah,
about his life and justify his right to be alive. And here we have that exact person. I put the images together in a montage, and I tell you, it looks very much like that. And also in the only colors, because there's a film sequence of this as well, and it's black and white. Everything is black and white, except there's some people running. You don't see the faces or anything, but the only colors is like there are two boxes and some suitcases and the clothes of these people. Very red, very blue. And these are the colors that we have been speaking about before that are used in news, where, as far as I know, blue is there when you want to be serious and be taken in a serious way, and the red one is when you want to go emotional. depending on what it is they want, in what state they want you. This is the colors that are used behind the TV host and so on.
Right.
And here, these are the only colors that are there, except for a little corner on the floor where there are green, black, and white, and a triangular. But when you look at the Palestinian flag and you put the Palestinian flag next to these colors, it is spot on. And here we are. I'm just suggesting, I don't know, maybe it was just an explosion and this just, was lying in total chaos. But for me, these things very often are arranged to persuade your subconscious into seeing things that you are not aware of. So I would very much like to suggest that was not a coincidence, and it's there for us to say, oh, Palestine, back to the old, they were the ones who did this. There's some very, very odd photos as well of there's 3 people taking care of one of the victims. He's a bald man, and he's sitting with one of these rescue blankets, these metallic blankets in silver. That 3 men standing around him. But the way they're holding him is just like he's being baptized. There's one from the side where one has his hand on top of the bald man's head. The bald man he has closed eyes and he looks very, very, totally and I don't want to swear, but very calm, just like he's being blessed.
Yeah.
And in the other photo, it is where it almost looks like they're going to bend him backwards and take him underwater, baptizing him in a river. I put photos together. They look identical to the real thing.
Yeah.
And then you see the ring on the man who's putting his hand on the head of this man, and he's got a U.S. Air Force ring. I don't know, Brussels, how many former U.S. Air Force officers, I think it's only officers that get that ring, I'm not sure.
I don't know. Yeah, but the thing is, just going back to what we said before, Ole, they communicate in symbols and imagery and numbers. This is how they communicate, so you're picking all these things up. Yeah, these things are staged, they're orchestrated, they're engineered, and to get a result from the false flag, from whatever it is they're doing, but also to communicate with each other within these secret societies, within these upper echelons of the controllers. This is how they communicate. So all these things you're picking up makes perfect sense to me.
It's very bizarre, very, very bizarre. And I spoke to a guy, a very mysterious man that calls himself Mr. Anderson, just like in the Matrix.
That's unique.
He's even flown down from up north in Europe to Spain to meet me. I still don't know his name. Very mysterious man. But I get a strong feeling that he's been in military intelligence somehow. And he was the one that pointed out that ring, because I'd already put that photo out there, but I didn't notice the ring. And I said, but it looks just like he's being baptized, but why would they do a thing like that? And he said, maybe it's because what they're saying is, you have now been baptized, you're now one of us, now shut up and stay in line.
Yeah.
This is what his way of interpreting him. And he comes from that background. So it was just like, yeah, I can see your point of view here. Product placement. Can we have some product placement as well?
Yeah, we always do.
It's like, this is one that gets
you need the commercials, Ole,
We need the commercials. So where's the Toyota? Because it's said to be connected to ISIS. There was no Toyota because this had nothing to do with ISIS, because otherwise any photo with ISIS and there's a vehicle sponsored by Toyota. It is Toyota. So I would very much like to put a question to the owners of Toyota. What the hell are your vehicles doing in the photos of these terrorists? Maybe it would be an idea for you to stop selling vehicles to them if they were the one buying them, if they were not just funded with them. Good question. I would very much like an answer. And also Toyota, the owners of Toyota come from an old family of tailors, so maybe they are the ones sewing these black clothes as well. But the black clothes are very, very good because you cannot see that most of them are Westerners. I mean, look at the body structure and so on. Oh, are these Arab terrorists? I don't think so. Many of them very well built, Western proportions and muscular we're back to the CIA, the Mossad,
Right.
but this is also how this boogeyman is created. They created the Al-Qaeda, which is the CIA name of the database of their own agents that they trained. Oh God! And then when the Afghan war with the Russians took over, what are we going to do with these agents? Let's create the boogeyman
Right.
because we're running out of options here. So they created Al-Qaeda, totally their creation as a boogeyman. Then after a while, they couldn't use them anymore because we didn't get scared. You couldn't even scare small children with Al-Qaeda anymore. So what did they do? Upgrade. Yeah, baby. In comes ISIS on stage. The worst threat the world has ever seen came from absolute nowhere. Where did they come from? They were just there. And I love it. I love it when you really look into ISIS, the creation of and the leaders. Oh God! You had the leader of ISIS. I can't remember his name. It was something like with W. I can't remember. It's like this. When you have a patsy for one of these horrific events, they create names that you will never remember because you can't even pronounce them. But when you have somebody that's going to be used as a boogeyman again and again, you need like an easy name, like Obama, sorry, or this with the viruses. It's not like it's SV42XZY.
Right.
It's Ebola
Right.
or CETA. You can hear the music in the background with
Yeah. It's
you
catchy.
know,
Yeah.
it's catchy. Yeah, because people if you need to spread fear, you can't have somebody says, "Oh, I'm so afraid of the SV462BXV virus." They will
Right.
not, and the one they tell will forget it. So you need the catchy thing.
Yeah.
Ebola, 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 Ebola. So
Bird flu,
here,
swine flu, right? All that stuff.
yeah. So and also when you go into the flu, it's exactly with the virus and like this Zika virus now. Check out the patents. It was in 1947.
Right.
Yeah, it's patented. These are not just viruses that comes from nowhere. They are created and they are used to hit us, to hurt us. Anyway, I've lost track. But when ISIS came, first there was this name Washabi or something like that. His name was. He had an amazing life because he was wounded, captured, killed, escaped, wounded, and killed. Okay, so makes you believe in reincarnation. Then he was followed by someone, and I'm sure they've had meetings like, what are we going to call him? What are we going to call him? Like Shwaraka Mukhalaha? No, it doesn't work. It needs to be something you remember. El Baghdadi.
Right.
Baghdadi. That's the one. We've been bombing the crap out of this poor city. Everybody knows Baghdad. So Baghdadi, yeah, baby. So Baghdadi came in on stage. He had a similar kind of life. He was wounded, then he was captured, then he was killed, then he escaped, and then he was killed again. So what are we going to do? Upgrade it? Yeah, Baghdadi 2. The new Baghdadi looks totally different, but it's the same name. And it's like this. I mean, I don't know about you, but when somebody dies, normally they die. They
Yeah.
don't
They're
appear
usually
again.
gone forever.
That is sort of the way I've experienced life. You're dead. Sorry, you're out. But here, yeah, hey, I'm back. Anyway, back on track
Well, they did
here.
the same thing with, not to digress here, with Osama bin Laden. I think they had him dying 9 times. If you go back into time, you would see 9 different times. James Corbett did a whole
I love
article
it.
on us. It was great. He showed that 9 times it had come out in the news that Osama bin Laden had died.
That is pretty fantastic. And then, unfortunately, they lost his body out at sea. What a bummer. It's only the most important catch ever.
But it was a Muslim tradition to dump him in the ocean.
And if you go to a Muslim country, they have never heard of that at all.
Right.
They never ever bury someone like that. They bury them in the ground with one stone and one in each end of the grave. So please, Pentagon and the CIA and Mossad, study history, get your facts straight, before you do these things. That would make a difference. But product placement. we've gone through, and many of these other operations, we've gone through these product placements where very central in many of these photos that are being spread all over the world is the logo or the name of certain products. Maybe by coincidence, but when you see it being repeated, you have to put a question mark there. And one of them is Nike. Nike's logo, check it out. When you go through the years of these terror events, look in the center of these photos. These photos, it's always with very good quality photos. You have very good lens. It can be like, for instance, at the Paris attacks, you see the police in SWAT team uniforms at the crime scene, and then by coincidence, somebody has dropped 2 Nike shoes in between their feet, but it's black and white, very sharp in the absolute center of the image. And Nike, I don't know how many times I've seen the same logo again and again and again. So either they're very lucky with getting a lot of exposure for nothing, or there might be another reason why they're there. Maybe they're owned by the same people as Toyota, I don't know. So here, by any chance, can we find Nike in all of this? Yes, we can, because where the train was said to have been blown up, they say that when they blew up the train that the electricity was cut and the train stopped in a tunnel, as far as I understand the narrative correctly. So people were evacuated from the train and had to walk back in this smoke-filled tunnel. And when the camera, you see this guy, somebody is filming with a mobile camera, and the person right in front of them walking has this massive big Nike logo on the back of him, being there for seconds and seconds right in the center of these horrific images. Or horrific, it's just smoke and a tunnel. Coincidence? I don't know. But there's another one, there's several other ones that I react against. You know, there's one, the cameras always used by terrorists, by the way, is GoPro. It is standard, all of these that are being filmed, GoPro cameras. Then you have, like now when the phone systems went down, you have these articles being spread all over the world that WhatsApp and Facebook was they were the only ones that worked.
Yeah.
So they have the icons of these, the Facebook icon and the WhatsApp as illustration. I would say that is commercial. This is, you know, why do they even mention? They could just, as an objective journalist, I used to be a journalist, I would just write, the phone system went down and they had to use alternative ways of communicating or something like that. Not put the logo. I mean, this is it breaks all rules when it comes to what is an ad, what is news, and so on.
Well, they're conditioning people to go there in case there's an emergency and, you know, the normal means of communication go down, then you need to go to Facebook or you need to go to some app. So they're steering them there, of course. And when you go to Facebook, I mean, as you know, it's all over the place. Everybody has a different opinion. Everybody has a different position. Everybody's arguing and debating with each other. So they're sending them someplace where ultimately what's going to wind up happening is it's just going to be a big mishmash of chaos. You know?
Do you know, I don't know if I'm taking it too far, but there is more or less one of the very few photos where you see somebody with that looks hurt. You know, there's a woman with dark skin that has blood in her face. She's got white jeans on with blood on her pants and so on also. When you look at it, there's no flesh wounds, there's nothing like that, but she looks hurt. And next to her, she has a boy. When you look at the pattern on his shirt, it's a very distinct green and red stripes like this. And this is the exact same shirt as Freddy Krueger, the figure on Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
It is exactly the one he used. So when I saw that, I thought, let me just check it out. And on the very same day as this happened, there was a new doll being promoted with the exact same colors on his shirt, with the whole thing, the Freddy Krueger, the new one, and so on. I don't know.
I don't know either, but you know, I don't put anything past them. I don't know either. It's all bizarre. I mean, the whole thing that that they're doing is very bizarre. And so, it might sound strange to some of the audience that, we're trying to maybe connect some of these dots, but I don't think it's as strange as some people think it is.
I can only say that what are the chances of the following thing then? The day before the Brussels attack, before the attacks on November the 13th, you had a big meeting in Washington at the George Washington University where you had top members from the Mossad,
Hmm.
French intelligence, CIA, and MI6. With people in the audience, everybody was applauding. What the hell are these people doing together,
Right.
in a meeting like that? And then just a few days later, boom, it happened. There were also presence of these forces just a few days before when there was a massive drill in Denmark that I hoped I might have been part of stopping, because I got people from Sweden going there, filming them while they were setting the whole thing up. Because this is the whole idea. When the drill is being public, the date and the place, what I beg people to do is to go there, bring cameras, bring their friends, and film these people when they set it up. Make it very, very obvious that they are being filmed, that they are being observed, that anything they do can be used against them. And then there's even certain apps that you can use. I think one is called Bamboozle, that if you click on it, it will go a live stream on YouTube. So if you are being approached by police or security people or something like that, you can just press the button, go live on YouTube and say, before you do anything, please know that you are being filmed. It's live on YouTube.
Right.
That is a very good insurance, because that calms people down like very few other stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I'm also part of working on an app that will help people with the same app to upload information about drills, upcoming drills, and so on, what to do. And also, if they observe anything in the neighborhood of what they are, to send out a signal to the other people with the same app saying, please come here, there's something going on, so that they're not on their own, but the group can gather and help to expose these things. And also a mapping of how people can connect with each other and map the whole system of how these things are carried out.
So you're working with somebody, Ole, to develop this app?
Yeah, I'm there as an advisor. I'm
Okay.
there as so. Of course, in Brussels, there was nothing like this before an event like this. Well, actually, there was. The day before this happened, the German Marshall Fund, which is an NGO closely aligned with the goals of George Soros, various European operations, was wrapped up in Brussels Forum in Brussels. Like George Soros, when you look at this person, oh my God, he is so central in so many of these things, funding very, very bizarre and macabre operations, including he has a very, very strong influence on this whole refugee situation in Europe and so on.
Yep.
But also, there was an attendance of a number of Israelis and noted Washington insiders. For instance, there was the U.S. Transportation Security Administration, TSA, their chief, Peter Neffinger, arrived at the airport right before the blast. Okay, already in Brussels, attending this forum, was Nicholas Rasmussen, the director of the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, and Camille Stewart, policy advisor to the Department of Homeland Security. What are they doing there? Okay. Also, among the Israelis, there was a man called Uzi Arad, who's a former Mossad officer and national security advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu. And Benjamin Netanyahu is so central in these operations. I mean, it's unreal when he is always there. Another man was Dan Maridor, former Israeli intelligence minister. They were meeting just a stone throw from where these operations went live. There was also Belgian officials in attendance, including the chief of the Belgian cabinet, Yves Goldstein was there. Noted Washington insiders were Jonathan Capehart and David Ignatius of the Washington Post, Jill Dorothy of CNN, U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman, Political National Editor Christine Roberts, and Chuck McCain's neocon foreign policy advisor Randall Schoenemann, and former State Department chief negotiator of the Iran nuclear deal Wendy Sherman, and Neera Tanden, president of the Soros-funded Center for American Progress. And one of the forum sessions was titled Valuing Security, Securing Values, Countering Terror at Home.
Interesting.
The session description stated, the horrific attacks in Ankara, Istanbul, Paris, San Bernardino, I have exposed all of these, and sort of have shaken the transatlantic community to its core, forcing its society to re-examine policies that affect values, identity, and the ability to provide for the public safety. Another session was titled, Degrade and Destroy, Countering Terror Abroad. I mean, these are the guys you should look at.
Right.
In my opinion, not some blurry image of a made-up phantom identity of somebody with a glove on the left hand, who's clumsy enough to leave an ISIS flag together with his bombs.
Well, all of their boogeymen, they seem to have an uncanny knack to be able to escape and elude all of the surveillance, all of the police state technology, all of the intelligence of these countries. Somehow they are able to slip under the radar and be able to do the things that they do. It's mind-boggling when you think about it, Ole. How are they able to do that?
They're very good. They must be very good.
You know?
Yeah. And then, boom, right after that, we had the Capitol Hill shooting. Oh, my God. You know, because according to Chip Tatum, CIA insider who has been in false flag operation, he told me that they have like staff meetings. Bye, darling. I'm going to the office today. Have a nice day. Going to the office, planning these actions, you know, going through the timeline, storyboards, the narrative, all of these things. Just another day at the office.
Yeah, no doubt. Yep.
And then when it goes active, they're there on standby following the events, and then they have follow-up meetings. And Chip said the question, one of the things that they go through is, did we accomplish the required effect, or do we need to amplify it? And very often he said something goes wrong and you need to boost it, to boost the thing. So what do? You hit somewhere else. And that also gave the impression of, oh my God, it's not only here, terror is everywhere.
Yep.
So you had the Woodinge beheading where it said that they chopped the head of Lee Rigby. I have many interviews, 2-hour interviews where I'm totally debunking that, picking it apart. When that impact wasn't strong enough, boom, the exact same thing happened in Paris of all cities, you know. So, and that event did not even happen as far as I know. It was only in the news. So it's there to boost it, you know, pump it up. And here, Brussels. Well, was it enough? People are starting to doubt. Boom, Capitol Hill shooting.
Yeah.
So what did happen there? And by any chance, was there a drill? And the answer is, sorry for me yawning. Yes, there was a drill that very morning. Look at the footage as well. Where are all the people? Where are everyone? You see a few people running around, tourists, and the rest are people in uniform.
Yeah.
You know, and the only area that was involved in this, and including the rest, was where it actually happened a few hours later. Is that a coincidence? Once again, I think not.
Right. Yeah.
And then it just gets tiresome. I really get tired sometimes. It's very hard for me to build up an interest when yet another crap operation takes place and people get, oh my God, once again. And then I have to spend so many hours looking into these things, really trying to build up an interest, looking for things so that I can say the exact things again and again. How many shows have I been on, Mike? How many shows have we been talking about different operations?
Right.
And it's the same. It's like watching the same Rocky movie 42 times and still be interested.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said in the beginning of the show, right? It's a template. It's something. They do the same thing over and over and over again, and that's why sometimes it's amazing to me, Oli, that more and more people are not awake to it. I mean, people are waking up. There's no doubt about that. Thank goodness to like the work that you're doing as an example. But it's amazing to me that more people are not waking up because it's the same thing over and over again. They never change it up.
But they can't. This is the beauty of it all. For one thing, what I love is they're dumbing down the population, numbing us down to more and more violence. I mean, you just have to watch a normal movie to see torture, to see people kicking people that are lying down,
Yeah.
unconscious, waterboarding, all of these things that would have shocked you to your core earlier on. Now it's normal day, boom. All the computer games, the fluoride in the water, we're being numbed down so we don't feel. Their thing is that they need us fearful. So they need to boost it up all the time. That is why you see ISIS where they've said to chop off the head of not one, not two, not three. In the end, I don't know how many was in the end, where you have these people where it said that they chopped the head of all of them. Then you start looking into these and you see, look at the shadows, look at where the light source is, and green screen. It's God, it's just so not good.
Yeah.
So what is the next step? And I've been thinking like, what can they do to opt it? The thing is, maybe with a chainsaw chop the head of someone and then eat their brain with a spoon. But that's already done in Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones with a monkey brain. So what are they gonna do? They've used all their options and we're still standing. So even though many are asleep, I must salute us as a human race that even though we're being the receiver of this massive propaganda machine that are using every weapon in their manual against us, we're still standing.
Well, they haven't blown up an old folks home or a hospice yet.
Yeah, but the hospice is that it won't get the effect. It will not get the. They tried, with in San Bernardino with people in wheelchair or retarded, but that will not get the same thing. You need cute babies. You need women and children. That's the thing. Maybe nurses, nuns. Sometimes is that the thing. But they've used it all.
Yeah.
They're running out of options.
Yeah.
They used all the different boogeymans. They even tried, go like in the, what was the name, Santa Barbara shooting where they had this model-looking son of a film director, once again film director, the victim in the Copenhagen shooting, film director. It's again and again in the witnesses in Paris, film directors or closely directed or legal advisors to film productions again and again and again. They've used blacks, they used Muslims, they used geeks, they've used in Norway they went for a totally like what they call Aryan race looking guy, super blonde with blue eyes. They're running out of options. What are they going? They've tried the shoe bomber, they tried the underwear bomber. Where are they going to stuff this bomb next time? Up your butt? No, that one really. Yeah, and then he could make it detonate by swallowing a sandwich with salt on. I mean, how can you can't do it? And with more and more surveillance, how can they say that they slipped through the surveillance? Because now they're even gonna do it mandatory with the body scanners, so that you're forced to do it. Okay, I'm sorry. That is also why now they're saying we need the terror event happened before they checked in. Because once they checked in, you can't say, I'm sorry we didn't see you, because that would just destroy all of your security equipment and all the billions that you're selling it for. So now they're saying we need another layer of security outside before they check in. So they have to pre-check in before they check in, before they really check in. And then You will have the long line of people on the outside of the airport
Yeah.
waiting for security to check the
Pre-security.
security, to check the security, to check the security. And it's just going to be more and more vulnerable, the long queues or the. So what are they going to do? They're messing it up for themselves, and I'm sitting in the background applauding because it's just wonderful.
Well, this has been
That,
great, Ole. Very enlightening it is every time we speak. It's even though they go through the same process, the details that you bring forward and the things that you see and the things that it's going to wake more people up because it's making more people look at these things now and to pick up on the little idiosyncrasies or the little details or the symbolism and so on that normally, if people don't listen to you or to people who are doing work like you, they would never see those things. And if you don't see them, then what the controllers are doing, I mean, the rate of success increases exponentially. And so what you're doing is you're taking the success rate and you're knocking it down about 10 notches and you're making them having to work harder in order to get anything done. And this is great.
I know.
I'm
I'm a pain.
you don't know.
I am a pain in the butt, I tell you. No, but it is exactly, I don't know if you've seen, there was one program some years ago, a series of programs where there was this magician with a mask that showed how many of these tricks were done, the big magicians, how are they carried out? And I tell you, he was not very popular in the business, I'm sure, because suddenly all of these magical tricks didn't work anymore because everybody knew, no, he's rolling down that and underneath and coming up there. And this is exactly what I want. Instead of us buying into this every single time, what I'm trying to point out is if you have a magician, he's doing a trick, magic with his left hand, and you think, oh my God, it is pure magic. It is incredible. The more times you see the trick and you start moving around the magician from different angles, study from different angles, then suddenly you will see it is not magic. It is a trick. And maybe he's doing it with the hand behind his back. And this very second when people understand how a trick is done, the spell is broken.
Yeah.
Because then as soon as he puts his hand up to the left side, I'm going to show you a trick, people are just going to yawn and say, sorry, we know you're already doing it.
Right. It's not magic. Yeah.
It's not magic. So that it's broken. We've broken the back of this thing. And I want to break the back of this terror joke. It is a joke. And really, we must be ashamed of ourselves to have been buying into this for so many years. Because the result is all of these unjust wars. I mean, people are being slaughtered, murdered because we are totally brain dead and asleep. There's no excuse for it. It is not okay. And sometimes I say, please wake up now, and then we sort this problem, and then on the other side you can go back to sleep again if you want to, if that is where you're comfortable. Here and now, it is wakey time.
Yeah. If you're not awake, you're complicit. You're enabling them. You're helping them accomplish their goals. It's that simple.
They can't do it without us.
Right. That's exactly right.
This so-called elite is a small group of mostly elderly men. You say, oh, they're so powerful. They got all this high-tech equipment. They got all the armies. They got all the drones. They got all of the surveillance. They wouldn't know squat on how to use it if it was not for people like us who are specialized and trained in these different areas like drone command. I don't know what all of these different things are.
Yeah.
Without us helping them, they would be screwed. They would not have any power. So I really ask people, listeners, to look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I in any way or form or shape helping this very brutal death machine moving forward? It can look like you're doing a very nice job and so on, but look at it from different angles. And if you are, because many of us are without really understanding it, then do something else. Stop it, Just like I think we spoke about it another time, that during the German occupation of Denmark, the resistance movement, one of the things they did was that they crawled up to the German tanks and put sugar in the tank.
Right.
And that spoonful of sugar destroyed the engine. So you have this massive, big, invincible tool of death, and a spoonful of sugar just destroyed it.
Right.
So add some sugar to the whole thing, and let's stop this madness. That's what I say.
And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
Understand